recording okay with everybody? I think it's okay, but is there any objection out there with recording? Okay, it seems okay, so we can start recording. And I just want to mention in the beginning that I have to leave on the top of the hour today. I have some personal commitment, but Ines will be there to continue. And so to start with, I know that today we don't have any special topic, but we will go through the regular status update, and if anyone has anything else to discuss regarding the new IoT groups in IETF or outside where we need to pay attention to, that would be great. But first we will go quickly with the updates. And before then, since Eric Henke, our responsible AD, is also on the call, I just would like to say to Eric, if you have anything that you would like to say to this group for the pre-meeting, it might be good to share right now.
Okay, nothing specific to say, and thank you for the invitation. Thank you for participating. And I've seen recently many more IoT Directorate reviews of draft, which is very, very helpful. So thank you for people doing this. It's really helpful.
Thanks.
And that's it, basically, for me.
Okay, great. So Ines, then maybe we can start with the status update. So we can start with the first working group in the co-DMD.
Yes, 6-ish. Please, there is someone from 6-ish? Thomas?
Yes, but there is no news. I mean, all the documents that the group produced are now waiting in the RFC .q, which is locked. Cluster 310 is being locked by 2 or 3 documents, 1 from core and 2 from role. So once those documents are passed, then all the 6-ish documents will be published as well. And 6-ish will be pretty much done. So I expect that we'll close the working group.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pascal.
And the core document is
stateless.
The stateless document is undergoing its last fixes for the IESG review now.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Sixlo, there is someone from Sixlo, Charles Sueta.
Yes, so Carlos here. So in Sixlo, overall, the working group status hasn't changed significantly since the last IETF. Most working group documents are at very advanced stages and still progressing, and there has not been much new work. So in more details, there are 5 documents currently in the RFC editor queue. 4 of them are in Auth48 already. This is the address protected label discovery, backbone router, and the 2 fragmentation drafts. And there is the other one, which is not in Auth48, is the deadline time draft. All these documents belong to cluster 310. Then there's 1 document in ISG evaluation, which is IPv6 over NFC. And then there are 3 other active working group documents, quite advanced as well. Publication has been requested for IPv6 mesh over BLE. Also, IPv6 over PLC has passed working group last call, and there has been a second working group last call for the 6 low use cases draft. And there's one individual draft at initial stages about the use of chic header compression in 6-low environments. And there's currently an open poll on which is the working group opinion on a draft entitled Design Considerations for Low-Power Internet Protocols, where the authors had approached the independent submission editor. This document provides some measurements about memory footprint and interoperability of different 6LoWPAN implementations and provides also some design guidelines. So that would be it from 6Low.
Carles, if I may say, the 4 documents that you mentioned that are in Auth 48 are actually out of Auth 48, but the RFC editor has asked the responsible ADs to make a final review pass to ensure that the changes that were done during Auth 48 are okay. So Auth 48 is complete. We are really close to publication.
Yeah, I think it's actually Auth 48 done or something like that, the actual status. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Carlos and Pascal. Additional questions? No? Okay, from ACE, Daniel, or someone that can provide some information.
I have to find the unmute button. So for the ACE working group, we are revising the OS scope profile. We're moving on the group communications, and MQTT is almost close to be sent to the ISG. So that's where we are.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniel. Questions? No. Okay, thank you for the help of there. Yes.
Yeah, Ines and everybody, I think we probably should spend 1 minute of silence for Jim Shad. I think that would be appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah, shall we take 1 minute from now and just pay respect to for Jim Shad. Thank you. So 1 minute starts now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Samita. Okay, we can go with the IETF. Michael? Michael? Or Niklas?
Hi. Yeah, so we're officially a working group, and ASDF is officially a working group. We'll have our first official virtual interim meeting on Monday at 1800 UTC. We've issued an adoption call for the base document, and we will meet at IETF 109. And as proposed in the charter, there's an approximately kind of month or two cadence for the effort between revisions of the document and writing code.
That's great. Thank you, Michael. Questions? Oh, okay. Sibor, Francesca?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, since last ITF, we continued the working group bi-weekly interims. We have recently rechartered to work on CDDL extension, so it was a minor rechartering. We have 2 documents in the RFC editor queue, the CBORD tags for date, which is in Auth 48, and the 7049 bis. which is a great success. And we have a working group last call for the tags OID document, which started yesterday and ends in 2 weeks. And yeah, and then we are progressing the rest of the documents.
Great. Thank you very much, Francesca. Some questions? Okay, thank you. Cor, Jaime or Marco?
Hi, Marco here. We have 2 documents in ISG review, and we are processing their comments. This is the resource directory and stateless, the document mentioned before by Pascal and Michael. 2 more are in ID review, also processing their comments, and we have the 4 core conf documents under Shepherd write-up, so we expect to request for publication soon. Group of score also passed working group last call, and we'll submit soon a version addressing the comments. We've had 4 interims since IETF 108, mostly to address those ISG review comments and on advancing other documents. We'll meet at IETF 109, and at the hackathon we plan to run more tests for group of score. That's all from my side.
Great. Thank you, Marco.
Thank
There
you.
is some questions?
Quite active. Thank you. So there will be a hackathon. I'm reading the CodeMD notes in IoT, in IETF 109, right? So this hackathon is only any other groups are joining, any other IoT groups are joining other than Core in the hackathon for IETF?
Well,
There's some planned tests also for ACE.
and Anima.
Oh, okay. Anima. Okay.
Yeah, and then maybe
Anima,
student deep.
Okay. Anima is probably not part of the IoT Directorate, is it? But
No.
Suit is. Okay. Thanks.
Kose, Matt, and Ivalo. There is someone or someone can provide some information, please. No. Okay. DetNet or low?
Hi everyone, Janos speaking. Since we are new to the Directorate, we tried to give not just an update, but a full picture with Lou. So we have 2 kinds of documents, I would say, mature ones and quite upcoming new work. The working group has already published 3 RFCs, one on architecture, one on problem statement, and one on use cases. And we call a few of further working group documents as core drafts of the working group, which are now really getting to publication. The core data plane drafts are at the RFC editor queue. Like if you've been following DetNet, one update recently is that the DetNet MPLS and the IP over MPLS data plane drafts just got into the RFC editor queue. And the last core data plane draft, the MPLS over UDP IP, is getting there soon, as well as our security draft and the flow information model. We have 3 more data plane drafts, all related to the time-sensitive networking interactions, and these just post the working group last call. We also have a Yank working group document, which is we are hoping wrapping up soon. We just had an interim meeting dedicated to this document, the Yang work, to foster and accelerate. And the last bullet lists the sort of newer, not so major work items We have work ongoing on the OEM, dedicated to IP separate and to MPLS, and just OEM framework document is coming up, which is a relatively new document, not working group document yet actually, but individual draft. The working group also have a document on bounded latency, how to address that. Update is coming for this upcoming IETF, and we hope that gets progressing as well. And a very new one is the control plane drafts that came in via rechartering recently, mid this year. There is a control plane framework, a strong candidate to working group adoption soon, and a new one just uploaded an individual contribution signaling. I would say that's it in brief. Any questions?
I have a question, Yanis. Thanks for the update. And this is the first pre-IETF IoT Directorate meeting for DetNet because DetNet joined IoT Directorate recently. Do you recommend any of these drafts that you mentioned should go through IoT Directorate review because they might have some impact for IoT area? Or maybe you can give a very brief update on how, where we have some intersection between the, general IoT related work in this IoT Directorate group and DetNet, so people probably can relate and go take a look.
Yeah, so I guess I would suggest to start to open up the use cases, which includes several use cases, and there is industrial IoT or machine to machine. It's called machine to machine there, for example. So if you can take a look, and that's a good start on taking a look on what we have been aiming for, or we are aiming for, and the architecture RFC is also a useful, very base document for DetNet for an understanding of the work. And what I might, well, it's hard to down select really what is exactly IoT. I mean, for example, just thinking of these TSN related drafts, TSN is a strong candidate for industrial IoT, factory automation, and so on. So that is relevant, and comments would be absolutely welcome if anybody checks that. That's I guess what I would call out right now. There are quite various use cases we are addressing, so that makes it a little bit difficult to scope what is so much focused on IoT.
Yeah, I understand. I think the use case probably is good draft to begin with, and and also you rightly pointed to TSN. So because of the relevance for industrial IoT. So thank you.
Thank you.
We can go to the next one, Ines, Lake.
Yeah. Melissa or Stephen?
Yeah, hi, this is Melissa. So on the lake side, we will be meeting during Monday of the IETF week. We have a 2-hour session scheduled. Since the last IETF meeting, we did not have major changes. Authors were busy working on the ad hoc issues on the GitHub page and opening some of the issues there, but we did not see much discussion on the list. So we will be discussing during the meeting how to restart these discussions on the list during the meeting. So that would be all on my side.
Okay, thank you very much,
And I think
Melissa.
Lake is new this time, Ines, or Melissa. Is Lake added recently? This is your first PIETF meeting?
Oh no, it's not. I mean, we've been around for quite.
Okay.
No, it's not.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for my mistake. I thought Lake was new to IoT Directorate group this time, but thank you for the reminder.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. LWIG, Mohit or Sen? Someone know what is the status?
Elwig, you said something else.
Oh, okay, yeah, LWIG. Louis, I don't know. Louis. Do you know, Michael, what is going on in
I know there's some
LWIG?
activity with the constraint ESP, but like that's the only activity I've seen in the ages. I think that's just some kind of review happening.
Alice, can you say something about the TCP work?
Yeah, I was going to do so. So yeah, one of the LWIG documents is currently in ISG, and well, there's one discuss at the moment. So we just updated the draft this morning, and well, let's see if we can clear the last discuss. That's for TCP guidance in IoT environments.
Right. Thank you very much, Carlos. Some other questions for? Okay. And LP1, Alex or Pascal?
So LP1 is progressing 2 documents at this moment. One of them is the SHIC compression over LoRa. And this one is going through ISG review. And well, we just passed IETF last call. And AD review, right? Well, we are in that phase. And the other one is the SHIC over co-ops. That's the one which is more interesting at this moment, because we passed the ISG review stage, and we found one major comment about the architecture, because the compression happens twice, really. Once to compress the IPv6 UDP and the outer co-op. And then if COSI is being used, then the inner application objects, which can be protected by COSI, may be protected between different endpoints, meaning that the compression happens between different endpoints. So this is why we had to look at this with a lot of care. And the new version of the document which addresses this architecture change are now ready. So we expect to go through the rest of the ISG review quite soon. So the SHIC over SHIC serving co-op, including COSI, will be ready soon. And that's pretty much.
Great.
We are progressing other documents, but they're still in the working group. For other media, that's SHIC for LTE and SHIC for Sigfox. We also push SHIC for over PPP to the internet area working group. I don't know if somebody will talk about that. But at the moment, the SHIC over PPP is done by Interim.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Pascal. Questions? No? Okay. Rats, Kathleen, Nancy, or Ned? Someone can provide some feedback, but anyway, we have information here.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi.
Nancy.
So we have several documents that have been adopted. The architecture one, we put out a curriculum last fall, and it should have, I think, in 16. The new document, which is the TPM-based network device attestation, in other words,
Kathleen, we cannot hear you very well. Or it's me, maybe.
No, it's my WebEx. Is this any better?
Yes.
Much
Okay.
better. Yeah.
Okay. So the architecture is in working group last call. I think it closes on the 16th of November. The second draft, which is the profile for TPM-based network device attestations, completed its first round of last call. There were several comments received. The authors have updated the draft, so we're just waiting to get confirmation whether all those comments have been resolved for us to figure out if we're ready for publication request. The EAT draft, which is actually the first draft, standard draft for the token claims, it's still progressing. There's still a lot of discussion there. I'd like to see it progress faster, but it is what it is. The next draft is a TPM-based Yang model challenge response means of doing attestation. We issued an early Yang doctor review. It's a little bit late. Well, not a little, 2 weeks. So until we get that, we're not quite ready to do the working group last call. I think Eric is trying to schedule a call with Mahesh just to accelerate that process. Interaction models was adopted at the last IETF 108, so we're still awaiting more reviews to see its level of maturity. And then there's, I just listed the other drafts that haven't been adopted yet, but are under consideration. That's it. We'll have 2 sessions. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nancy.
Yep.
Questions for Rats? No. Okay. For all, we will have 2 hours in the IETF 109, and the documents active right now is a use of Ripple info. I think we are ready to go back to the ISG, and at the same time, so we are aligned with the turn on documents and unaware leave. And now unaware leave is in a director review, and then as well probably will be aligned with the efficient MPDAO that is an RPC editor queue. So these 4 documents are now very active, and we hope to get them done soon. Enrollment priority, we have recently a new version, so we are working reviews and a Shepherd document. And ODB report is we are in area director evaluation, and we are hoping to fulfill all the comments from the 80 from the authors. Capability and MOPEX are in progress, and in the extension we just have a new review addressing the comments from the Shepherd, and we hope to submit it for 80. And as well, we are preparing topics for the Ripple version 2. So I think that's going to be one of the topics for the IETF 109. Thank you.
Any questions on role? People are really quiet this time. Okay. Thanks, Ines.
Thank you.
Maybe, Ines, it could be interesting to mention that we have started the discussions on what changes we would like to make in Ripple to build Ripple v2, and which new function would belong to Ripple v2, which ones would be eliminated, things like that.
Yes, we started the discussion, yeah, in the interim meetings. So we have started the GitHub role, and we are collecting the topics that we want to address for this new version. And as well, we have to review the 6550 and find out is a future work and what of this future work we can address in this version 2, and what's going to be the things that we want to make obsolete as well. But of course, we have to review the interoperability scope I want to get in this new version. Yes, thank you. Do you want to add some?
I am.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead. Sorry for interruption.
No, I just want to ask Pascal if he want to add some other information, but it's fine. Please.
No, we just that there are a number of interesting functions in Ripple v2. Ripple v1 was mostly the distance vector, the standard, the distance vector protocol, like an IGP as usual. With IODV on the one hand and the route projection on the other hand, we're adding, for the first one, a reactive operation, and for the second one, an SDN operation. So that means that for Ripple v2, we'll have the capabilities to be all the colors of routing protocols from reactive to centralized routing, all within the same Ripple type of operation.
Thank you, Pascal.
Thank you. Yeah, you partially answered my question. I was going to ask if you could explain the differences between Ripple v2 and current Ripple version 1. So I think I'm not closely following, but this would be probably, this would benefit probably many people in this meeting to see why do we need Ripple v2? I mean, what problems are we going to fix?
Yeah, that is the thing that we are defining now. So we don't have a specific, we just have set the point, but at some point would be nice to do probably some tutorials or something and just show you which is the difference so we can get feedback on what you think. So we will need, like, I think, feedback from the others. So IoT work group.
I think that we've been calling it Ripple v2, but it's not really a version 2. It's an RFC 6550 BIS at some point where we collapse it all and we perhaps might even get to internet standard. Maybe.
Yes, that's more correct. That's exactly how I see it as well. Note that the Ripple v1 was made for a green field. There was nothing no art to live with. But now, as we build those Ripple networks, we find that it's hard to evolve them because we don't have functions like capability negotiation or dynamic activation of features. So it's very hard to add anything new in the field. As the protocol stands, it's kind of fixed. So part of the drafts that we have now and we want to integrate in Ripple v2 are capability negotiations. And for instance, if you deploy a new software, it takes time. So you want the software to be deployed, but not activated. So at some point, you need a way to activate that new feature. So we want to add this sort of capabilities which were not existent in the original repo. And then there are things in the original repo that nobody ever used that we want to kind of remove as we go to internet standard.
Thank you. Yeah. That makes sense.
There is this draft of capabilities and MOPEX that explain that too. So, yeah. Thank you. More questions? Okay. Sweet. David, Russ?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. There are 3 working group documents and 2 non-working group documents I'll talk about. The top one is the architecture for suit. This is on the IESG telechat for next week. Should be considered stable. The next one is the document that has the information model and threat model. This is also in the IESG. It already went through AD review, which raised some comments. A new doc was posted 2 days ago, and at that point, the IETF working group, the IETF last call began, and so this is currently an IETF last call. The next one is the one that is actually the implementable one, which is the manifest. This one is still in progress, but it is close to working group last call. And I expect a new draft will be posted by the internet draft deadline. That's what the main focus of the working group is, completing that one. And that leads me to the next non-working group document. At IETF 108, the content that is now in draft Moran's suit report was part of suit manifest. And the IETF 108 discussion was to split it out of there because it was brand new content into there, and we were trying to get the document to working group last call. So we split the document so that the suit manifest could go to working group last call. After the split, well, suit report could continue being discussed because the content was new. And so that one is still going on discussion. And the whole point of creating that one was, again, to make the suit manifest be able to go to working group last call after the version is posted at this deadline on Monday. And then the last one is the MUD use with suit. And that one was discussed at 108. It was brand new right before 108. And there was some discussion about what's the right home for it. And at 108, we decided that suit would probably be the right home. And so we expect a follow-up discussion on that one. But since that one has some of the same authors, I don't know if this one is going to be updated again by Monday. I haven't heard. So I don't know if Hannes, if you know, but I expect this one will continue discussion in the working group.
I can ask Brendan.
Yeah. So unless there's any questions, that's it for suit. We're only meeting for 1 hour at IETF 109.
Thank you very much, Dave. Question? Okay. Thank you. Tip, Nancy, Hiru?
Yeah, so for TEEP, we're also meeting only for 1 hour in IETF 109. We have 3 active documents. Dave, I'm presuming you're getting close to finishing the architecture and the transport.
Yeah, the transport was published earlier this month, and so and the AD confirmed. Well, my belief is that the transport is done. Okay, I haven't been tracking all the emails closely, but I thought I saw some interactions. Anyway, I think once the architecture and the transport ones are complete, we can start the submission request for publication for both the architecture and the transport draft. There's been activity by the authors, and Dave, I'm assuming Akira will become an author in the protocol draft. He's already currently listed as a protocol as an author and the draft to be posted, correct?
Yeah. So I suspect we'll be having discussions for that draft and expect that in the IETF 109, we'll see if we're ready to do another working group last call on it, a working group last call on it. And then we can move forward on that one too. And that's it.
Great. Thank you very much, Nancy. Questions for Tip? No? Okay. Yeah. We have here Synthesis Research Group, Ari Karsten. Well, anyway, there is like the work done here is going to be from 1DM work to ISTF. There's going to be hackathon at IETF 109, and they're going to continue the work after that. So
Thanks.
some additional information. Yes.
I see Karsten there.
Yes.
Okay.
I was going to say the same thing that Ines already said. So we've pretty much focused on getting the collaboration with 1DM safely shipped to the ASDF working group, which is now spun up. So at IETF 109, we will only do the hackathon, probably also with SDF related work, and we will start doing a broader set of subjects. We have many drafts that we should be looking at next. For instance, the whole IoT edge computing discussion, and we will do that after IETF 109.
So what is in your mind or the working group's mind for the edge? Could you give us a little hint? Is it APIs or maybe more data 1DM type of work or the core?
It's not yet as concrete yet. So right now there is a document that describes the area and describes some structure for the area, and we want to finish that report next. So we're not doing protocols. We are doing reports that summarize research and interact with those people who are doing this research. So that's the edge work. But we also have other things on the plates.
Thank you.
Questions for Karsten? Okay, thank you. Going. Jeffrey, Eve, Marie Jose. No one? Someone is aware what's happening going? No? Okay. Rao, Rick, Eve? No one? So someone is aware what's happening in Rao?
Yes. So there are a number of documents which were adopted. You know, RAW is not designed to produce standard tracks document. The charter is only for informational, and the first informational documents were adopted last month, and they are related to the use case. So we have a use case document. And they're related to technologies. So we have one generic technology document, which covers 5G, covers LDAX. That's a link that's defined for aviation. Then we have 6-dish and Wi-Fi 6.7. So those four technologies are all described with same similar skeleton. Who describes them? Which standard body, what kind of capability, and in particular role-related capabilities, like can you schedule this link? And so then we have a third document on technology, which is one which is very specific to LDAX, because that's a technology that people are not very well used to. So we have that one. There is an interesting one on 5G as well, which is actually published by Janos Group, and I don't know that there was a call for adoption for that one yet. Janos, maybe you can tell us on that.
So Pascal, we have rolled that into the technologies draft. So the standalone will just age out and
okay.
And that text is
okay. Yes. Because the LDAX one continues, because they wanted to give us more information than the formatted information that the technology document has. Okay, so I was not sure whether you wanted to continue on that with the 5G. So for Wi-Fi and 6-dish, we don't have a separate document. Everything is in this technologies document. So use case, LDAX, and technologies are the ones that are progressing right now. There is personal submission for the architecture and framework. Now the content is not really agreed on by the group, and the document was not called for adoption yet. That's pretty much all I know.
Maybe one more thing to add: the OEM work is progressing.
Yeah, true. So the OAM work, which started in parallel at row and 60ish, and I'm sorry, .NET. Now the split has been done differently, and some of the row OAM, which was common to .NET, has moved into the .NET work. That's how I understand it. So
yes,
row is the very specific to row, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Do you know if that this working group have some relation or some connection, some documents with the 6G IP mailing list that is in our working group?
There is no relation that I know of between those two.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Pascal and Janos. So there is a new proposed working groups, IoT operations, IoT ops. So the chairs proposed are Alexei, and Henk. There is someone of you, Alexei, Henk, here?
I don't see either of them, but it's Rob Wilton here, so I can probably speak a bit more about this. And those chairs haven't been confirmed yet. That was just some names we put in, some ideas. So the idea here of IoT Ops working group is to almost have like a MOPS-like discussion place for discussing IoT things, operational issues related to IoT. It is worth pointing out that this idea of having this sort of working group has been around in the ISG for quite a while, and this is our effort of trying to drive that forward now. There's still discussions in the ISG as to exactly what shape this working group should take. So the chart that you've got there that's pointed to is before the latest discussions that happened yesterday in the ISG. So it is changing shape a little bit from what's there to be more focused like MOPS, more on discussion. It will potentially work on informational documents describing problems and maybe requirements related to managing IoT networks and other IoT operations. The other side of it is sort of onboarding related work, but the current plan is that it doesn't do any protocol work, that it was already envisaged that the protocol work would go to other working groups where possible it already exists, but at the moment it looks like it's hardening to saying we won't do protocol work in IoT ops and it will just do this sort of informational documents and potentially, if work does come in there, to dispatch it to other existing working groups, create new ones as required. So on the current charter, it's suggesting that it would pick up the MUD documents from Ops AWG and the Brisky work from Anima. The current plan is for that not to happen. So there's two things going on. Well, there's one thing at the moment going on is this sort of discussion in the ISG as to getting the shape of this working group right. And then the plan was to then have more discussion on this IoT ops list we created to actually work on the charter. It may be that we try and do both of those in parallel, but with the warning that the shape of the working group might change depending on what the other members of the ISG think. Does that make sense? Any questions related to that? I don't know if Warren wants to add anything to what I've been saying there.
Yes, please. That would be good. So yeah, this is still fairly early days for this sort of discussion. The charter the charter text that was put in was sort of very much drafty text. As Rob said, the idea was that this would be something very similar to MOPS. I'm not sure if folk are familiar with the MOPS working group. It's for media operations, and it's almost sort of like a special interest group where people who are interested in media operation can gather and sort of discuss how things work, their findings, etc. This is a very new type of thing for the IETF. In fact, I think that MOPS is the only current working group like that. And it doesn't really fit into our generally understood idea of, a working group which gets together and writes documents and focuses on document creation. So we've been having a bit of a tricky time explaining this concept in the IESG. And that's why the charter is very drafty and is still changing. What we had envisaged is there's a huge chunk of work in the IETF which is related to IoT type stuff. But it's often hard for especially newcomers or people outside the IETF to understand where that work fits in, like how it all interrelates, how you can take work that we've done and sort of plug it together, what experiences people have had using it, that sort of thing. And so the hoped for idea was to be able to have sort of a venue where people can get together and just discuss this, what they've learned, how things work, that sort of thing. Again, we don't really have an easy way to have that type of group within the IETF currently. And so a lot of the back and forth has been, what would this sort of group look like? How do we have groups that do that sort of thing? And that's why we've mostly been having discussions amongst ourselves, myself and Rob, and trying to sort of figure out how we can share this first with the ISG to make sure that the structure can be understood, and then with the rest of the IETF and IoT DIR and all the working groups that are involved in this sort of work. So hopefully that explains a little bit more about what the thought process was and how we've got here. This is not a secret thing or anything. It's more just how do we build working groups which can discuss things, not quite as much work on documents.
This is Barry Leighton. I'd like to add to it
yes, please.
One of the issues is people come to the IETF and say, where are we working on IoT things? I don't see anything IoT related here. I have an IoT thing I want to bring to the IETF. With something like this, they now know where to take it, and that group's job is to figure out the best way to get it through our process.
Yes, exactly what Barry said. Thank you for saying that in a much more sane and coherent manner than I managed.
I understood Barry very well, but I don't know what MOPS does, so that analogy was lost on me. Like, I don't even know what media operation is.
So yeah, MOPS was at a bunch of IETF meetings in the past. There had been sort of side meetings where people who are involved in streaming media and sort of broadcast media would get together and chat. And they met a bunch of times, and they have some sort of unique sets of requirements for the network. And MOPS was a sort of group created so that they could get together, and actually Eric Fink is on the call. He can talk about it. It was his idea and he helped organize it.
Yeah. So and basically,
sorry, go ahead.
It came out of, people may have heard of the GGIE BOF proposals that never got approved and side meetings that happened. The idea was to discuss requirements for making a better user experience for streaming media. And now Eric can take it from there.
Yeah, so, and GGIE was even before the side meeting, so it was not really applicable. But the point is that video, for instance, is touching not only networking, but also transport. It's touching multiple areas, pretty much like IoT, by the way. And once the protocol has been designed and deployed, we still need to understand how to best deploy them, or to best combine different IETF protocol. So it was not only about chatting, it was really discussing and sharing experience there. And how it works, that's mainly presentation at the MOPS. And by the way, there's a MOPS interim in 2 hours today. So you may want to join just to get a taste of it, even if you don't really participate. And one of the points of this is not only to share experience, but also getting people, in a real physical meeting, hey, this looks interesting for me, I will go there and basically learn about new things. Of course, it's not the fun here with everything which is virtual, so you don't drop in a room by accident, right? And you cannot attract people. But it's basically sharing experience, which is kind of new with the IETF. We still have, of course, DNS ops and others, but that's sharing experience.
So does this somewhat make sense to people? And I'm assuming there's going to be a bunch of questions. As I say, this was still very early days, and we're trying to figure out what sort of structure could work before sharing it more broadly. but that seems to have possibly not worked out the way we thought, and it instead created some confusion and consternation.
Okay, thank you very much for all your feedback over IoT Ops.
Yeah, so this is Henk. I have a procedural question here. And this is just very carefully phrased, I assume. When we, so there are decisions to be made, and these decisions are made, for example, and that is very apparent, not using the list, and that is a deliberate decision, and that is fine, I assume. So what my question here is, if you need input, I think this has to be very carefully orchestrated. I mean, we can do it in this scope, we can do it in other scopes, but my assumption is, for example, the notions of this is less about protocols, for example, is a little bit surprising, maybe. And of course, now my doorbell rings. It's fun in home office all the day, and so maybe planning how to get input if there are questions or interesting ideas to be tested in some scopes. That doesn't have to be, I don't know, the whole IETF. That could be considered here, maybe.
Yes. I mean, I think that our thing was, first we wanted to make sure that, you know, we could even form a group like this that's mainly discussion based. Part of the, I mean, I guess this is probably well known. The idea of having something IoT related has been kicking around in the IETF for many, 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 many years. But the concern has often been that because IoT itself is so poorly defined, like what exactly an IoT is, there's been concern about, you know, what all is the scope, and that's been going back and forth. And there's been some sort of concern or confusion about how one makes sure that the scope covers what we intend it to. I don't know if that made sense or not. But yeah, I mean, the list is created now, so we should have more discussion on it.
So I didn't want to interrupt. I was a little bit distracted. I think the question of intent has its own scope. So shaping scope after intent, while still shaping the scope of intent is like, I don't know, somehow circular, I think, isn't it? Or is this just what I just perceived in them, and it's a misconception?
No, there's something definitely to what you say. The problem is that a bunch just needs to be a set of sort of agreements and negotiations to make sure that this doesn't end up overstepping its scope. But I think sort of it still goes back to the initial idea was, is even such a thing possible? I suspect maybe this is a, you know, we should have this discussion more on the list and go back and forth. I'm trying to come up with or Rob and I are trying to come up with a sort of updated version of what we might think might possibly be a workable charter. And we should probably share that with the list to make sure that people have a reasonable understanding. What we didn't want to do is we didn't want to first share all of this with the list and get people's hopes up that, you know, we might be able to form a group that does this, and then later run into the fact that, you know, the rest of the IETF doesn't want to charter something which isn't strictly within our normal structure of working groups. Maybe that
So this is Henk again. Okay, so this is Henk again. So I was under the assumption that the Lackmus test was already done and that there is interest. So I assume that is the whole motivator here. And so assuming that this chartering is now happening something else. So typically what you would do here, assess the interest, I think, and then have this very loud and broad and maybe even lengthy discussion. But if you want to streamline that, I think that doesn't change the assumption, doesn't it? So I think the assumption still remains that this is somehow required. And if that is in question, the this should be tested again. We need maybe another litmus test with the things that had happened.
1 sec. Now my doorbell's going off.
So I think there's reasonable support for this, but I think, yeah, I agree, it makes sense to test this. I think the best way forward is potentially to try and, as Warren says, share the current updated chart we're thinking of with the list. And I agree that having that discussion framed makes sense. And then for Warren and I to also at the same time liaise with the ISG to make sure that what's being proposed makes sense and gets agreement on that side as well.
Robert, which list are you talking about? Is it the list in the IoT Ops or IoT Directorate?
IoT Ops is the one I was thinking of for discussing the charter.
Okay, maybe, yeah. Maybe, would you be able to also send an email to the IoT Directorate list pointing to the IoT Ops charter discussion, because I think not everybody has attended this meeting, and it will be helpful.
Yes, agree, that
Sure.
makes sense.
Sure. And again, there wasn't a meeting yet. This was still more a, discussion on, is it possible to even form this sort of a group? I think people might have the impression that this is a lot further along than it is, and not just a, hey, we want to try and see if something like this is even doable.
And yeah. I believe Eric already sent the announcement of the IoT Ops list and charter discussion to the IoT Directorate list.
Thank you. I thought he had, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I did indeed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to everyone that gave feedback for this proposed working group. Some additional comments? Okay. So there is new plan ITF, RTF, IoT activities that you are aware that you want to share? No. Okay. Updates from other IoT groups? Well, I'm seeing here that Michael, you put information about IoT Security Foundation. So thank you for that. Do you want to provide some comments?
I think it's self-explanatory. Suit work was wonderful to have. And I think it's going to be very well received. So let's get it out as quickly as we can. I think that we're finally going to get some regulatory push on things, and I think that we will see an influx of new interest from places. So in trying to understand how to do it right and how to solve some of the problems that a number of sectors have, and they don't know that they have it in common. So IoT Ops will be kind of useful when the regulatory push happens. So they'll be looking around like, what do I do now? And we have protocols, they have problems.
Do they take some actions point for the IETF with respect with this foundation?
No no action points at this point.
Okay. Thank you very much, Michael. Okay, if there is no more information or some additional comments, do you want to share with us?
I will mention that earlier this month, so NIST earlier this year, a couple months ago, put out a security baseline for consumer IoT. That was NIST IR 8259 and 8259A. The 8259 is the one that is basically things to think about, and 8289A is the actual baseline with actual, proposed requirements, and then various other orgs, like 8 or 9 different orgs that had specifications that met those requirements. Earlier this month, NIST organized a workshop to spread knowledge about that and to get some community discussion, and I was one of the invited panelists, and so I just wanted to highlight that this workshop happened, and that there's a document on cybersecurity risks in consumer home IoT products. That document was pointed to the SUIT working group, I think, at a previous IETF meeting, 108, I think, since it was published before then. And the workshop that NIST hosted was just this month, last week. I'll post a link into the CodeMD.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave, for this update. And thank you very much to the people that helped us with the minutes and completing this Etherpad. Thank you very much for attending. So this session was recorded. We'll stop the recording now.